on satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web and around the world. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7.
Tonight on First at 9, pick up the pace. UN Human Rights High Commissioner tells Sri Lankan government to stop stalling progress of human rights and to uphold pledges. Silk clothes case. Lalit Veeratunga and Anusha Palpita appeal to the court to clear them from the silk clothes case. Federalism and Sri Lanka. Chief Minister of Northern Province says federalism does not divide. Sanitation for the indigenous. Minister Rauf Hakim says it's important to provide necessary facilities to the indigenous.
We have to model very environmentally friendly, but not too modern.
And in international headlines, weakening Irma. Ferocious winds and heavy rain leave more than 5.7 million without electricity in the wake of Hurricane Irma. Good evening to our viewers across Sri Lanka. Thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm Mahesh Joni. Our First at 9 coverage begins in Geneva tonight as the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights addresses the 36th session. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Prince Zaid Rad Al Hussein, continues to press the government of Sri Lanka to speed up the process of implementing the resolutions of the 30th session, which request Sri Lanka to uphold issues pertaining to human rights. The High Commissioner made these remarks while delivering his oral update to the 36th session of the UNHRC.
The 36th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council commenced today. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Zaid Rad Al Hussein, delivering the opening speech, urged the government to swiftly operationalize the Office of Missing Persons and to move faster on other essential confidence-building measures such as release of land occupied by the military and resolving long-pending cases registered under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. The Commissioner also said the Prevention of Terrorism Act must be replaced with a new law in line with international human rights standards. He further encouraged the government to act on its commitment to establish transitional justice mechanisms and to establish a clear timeline and benchmarks for the implementation of all these commitments. Quote begins, "This should not be viewed by the government as a box-ticking exercise to placate the Council, but as an essential undertaking to address the rights of all its people. The absence of credible action in Sri Lanka to ensure accountability for alleged violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law makes the exercise of universal jurisdiction even more necessary." Unquote.
The Chief Prelate of the Asgiriya chapter, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thero, urged the Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, to comply with the government in their attempts to reform and develop the provincial councils of the island. The Chief Prelate made this request to the Chief Minister upon his visit to the Asgiri Mahavihara to invoke blessings.
Arriving at the Asgiri Mahavihara last evening, Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, met with the Mahasangha, including the Chief Prelate of the Asgiri chapter, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thera. Many political, religious and social issues were discussed at the meeting.
The northern and southern people's expectations are to lead a happy and peaceful life. The central government has raised their concerns in this regard. As a provincial council, we should provide opportunities for them to prosper in their ideas. I cannot say that I completely understood what all of you said, but some of you claim that we are working in the name of separatism. Federalism does not mean separating the country. The Supreme Court recently stated that federalism does not separate but connects the country. Recently, North Central Province Chief Minister Peshula Jayaratne said yes to devolution of power but no to federalism. Devolution of power itself is federalism. I agree with everything else you said. Yes, we should live together in this country, but we have rights to protect our individuality and you should understand and allow it. I invite you all to visit the North and East and to understand our problems.
එක්සත් රටක් තුල බලය බෙදනවා කියලා පහුගිය දවස්වල අපිට දැනගන්න ලැබුණා. ඒ පිළිබඳව ඔබතුමාගේ අදහස.
එක්සත් හරි. ඒකීය කියනකොට
United, correct. That can be agreed, but not unitary. All these problems are because it's unitary. Even now, under the 13th Amendment, we cannot do anything. That is why we say that a unitary constitution is useless, and all we ask for is a united constitution.
එක්සත් constitution එකක් දාගන්න කියලා.
Leader of the National Freedom Front and UPFA parliamentarian Wimal Weerawansa alleges that plans are afoot to turn the country into a federation. He made these claims at a conference in Kaluthara yesterday.
New courts are established to find missing persons. After case hearings at those courts, army soldiers are imprisoned. Jagat Jayasuriya gets imprisoned and Fonseca provides evidence. On the one hand, there are war crimes, and on the other, there are suggestions of a federal constitution for provincial rule. When both are combined, there is a possibility to separate the country under international law. This paves the way for United Nations to establish the northern and eastern areas as a separate state, identified as Tamil Eelam. Chief Minister of the Northern Province, Vigneshwaran, meets the Chief Prelate and says federalism will not divide the country. Federalism is the first step, a separate state is the next. This treacherous government is moving along a path where a federal state is assured for the Northern Province.
Attorneys representing former Presidential Secretary Lalit Weerathunga and former Director General of the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission Anusha Palpita filed a petition to the Court of Appeal today challenging the verdict delivered by the Colombo High Court. The other Derana court correspondent reports that the petition was filed through the High Court Registrar. Meanwhile, several politicians, including former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, visited Weerathunga and Palpita at the prison's hospital today.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa arrived at the prison hospital to visit former Presidential Secretary Lalit Weerathunga and former Director General of the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission Anusha Palpita.
His condition isn't good. When I was there, a specialist was called to check on him. It's not a fault. They are trying to portray it as a fault. This was a decision taken in accordance with a request made by the public. The governing party and its supporters say that this was done for the election. It was not. It's a lie. The judge said that it was an order, but he was enforced by me. Purchasing in the future will also be a fault. I will accept my fault only if I am wrong.
Parliamentarian Chamal Rajapaksa and former Minister Mervyn Silva also visited the prison hospital to check on Lalit Weerathunga and Anusha Palpita. Meanwhile, Deputy Minister Ranjan Ramanayaka, along with a group of civil activists, alleged that Lalit Weerathunga and Anusha Palpita were admitted to the prison hospital in violation of accepted procedure. They wrote to the Secretary to the Ministry of Health in this regard today. In their correspondence, they requested the immediate execution of the pending transfer of the Acting Chief Medical Officer of the Baligada Prison, Nirmali Tenuvara.
Minister of Regional Development Field Marshal Sanath Fonseca says that legal action must be taken against those who issued orders to the former President's Secretary Lalit Weerathunga and former Director General of the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission Anusha Palpita on the silk clothes case. He made the remarks responding to questions raised by journalists following an event in Gampaha.
There is no issue in imprisoning Lalit Weerathunga and Anusha Palpita. If someone sexually assaults a woman and says it was done on the orders of the ruler, that crime can't be forgiven. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says the funds were issued under his orders. The 600 million rupees were spent from the TRC, not from his own inheritance. That's wrong. I believe he too should be behind bars. These people already have plenty of money to pay off the fine. As we have heard, each silk cloth costs $15 but was billed as $50. Thus, out of the 600 million rupees, only a quarter was spent for silk clothes. The rest has been stolen.
In other local stories, President Maithripala Sirisena states that talents of the Mahaweli sportsmen and sportswomen should not be limited to the arena of the festival. Rather, they should be developed with regular training to reach the national and international levels. He made these remarks at the closing ceremony of the 29th Mahaweli Sports Festival yesterday.
The annual Mahaweli Sports Festival, which commenced in 1986, was held for the 29th time at the Polonnaruwa National Sports Complex across this weekend. Addressing the gathering, President Maithripala Sirisena elaborated on the necessity of providing resources for regular training.
These sportsmen and sportswomen should go beyond this level and reach national and international levels. I request the sports director and staff members of the Mahaweli Authority, residential managers and business development officials to provide guidance, support and the necessary resources for regular practice. If there is a lack of basic necessities, I give clear instructions to the Director General and Secretary of the Ministry to provide them.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
President's Counsel Gamini Marapana, who is representing Arjun Aloysius at the Presidential Commission into controversial bond issuance, raised objections to his client giving evidence before the Commission during proceedings today. In response, Senior Additional Solicitor General Dappula de Oliveira said that if the Commission does not insist on Aloysius giving evidence, then it would have failed in carrying out its duties.
Today was the first time President's Counsel Attorney-at-Law Gamini Marapana represented Arjun Aloysius. In his submission to the Commission, Marapana said that the objection comes following the possibility of Arjun Aloysius becoming an accused party in the investigation. He added that his client has the right to remain silent during the course of investigations, and if the case is tried as a criminal case, then his client will, quote, deal with it, unquote. In response, Senior Additional Solicitor General Dappula de Oliveira said that there are differences in acts pertaining to the power invested to the Special Presidential Commission of Inquiry and the Commission of Inquiry. He added that the Commission has not accused any party as yet, and neither have they named any individual who is in the wrong. Furthermore, the Senior Additional Solicitor General said that every party must support the investigation in order to reveal the truth, adding that during the process of providing evidence, he or she will not become an accused. He also said that the country is waiting for Arjun Aloysius to give evidence before the Commission, and the appointment of the Commission comes after the President took into consideration the national interest. He said the two persons who ought to give evidence before the Commission are Arjun Aloysius and Arjuna Mahendran. Member of the Commission, Supreme Court Judge Prasanna Jayawardena said that members of the Commission will carry out their duties according to the law to the best of their ability. Chairman of the Commission, Supreme Court Judge K.T. Chitrasiri said a notice has already been issued to Arjun Aloysius to give evidence before the Commission on the 20th of this month. Thereby, he added that an order regarding the submission of President Counsel Gamini Marapana will be made then. Thereafter, President's Counsel Gamini Marapana requested the Commission give time to canvass the order in a higher court. In response, the Chairman of the Commission said that if his client wishes to canvass the order in any court, he may do so, but proceedings of the Commission will continue and not be delayed for any reason.
Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine, Dr. Rajitha Senaratne alleges that two pharmaceutical companies are funding certain medical unions in the country to act against him. The minister made the claim at an event held at Temple Trees today, adding that he is being attacked because of his strict implementation of laws.
I imposed a 90% tax on tobacco. It's the world's toughest tobacco tax. The chairperson of the Tobacco Corporation visited Sri Lanka and met people, including the Prime Minister. The Premier, however, knows that I will not change my stance. No one likes us, but some can spend amply. Two pharmaceutical companies approached a certain medical union and promised to pay as much as required to get them to act against me. However, we came here with a certain aim and will work continuously to achieve it. Nothing can stop us.
Meanwhile, the Government Medical Officers Association today announced a series of district-level token strikes over the site issue, threatening stronger action if no solutions are forthcoming.
If no solutions are given for this issue by the 21st, a massive joint strike will ensue, and all discussions on the matter are underway. The GMOA convened a meeting today and unanimously decided to hold a series of one-day token strikes at district level starting from tomorrow. Through all this, we urge the government not to provide fake solutions. Whatever committee they appoint must provide solutions on behalf of the people.
Minister of City Planning and Water Supply Rauf Hakim says the government is making a special effort towards improving sanitation facilities for the indigenous community of the country, devising measures that will not infringe their customs and traditions. The minister made the remarks addressing the 10th Inter-Country Working Group meeting of the South Asian Conference on Sanitation, which commenced today in Colombo.
The inaugural session of the 10th Inter-Country Working Group meeting of the South Asian Conference on Sanitation was chaired by Minister of City Planning and Water Supply, Rauf Hakim. Government officials, representatives from agencies including the World Health Organization and UNICEF, and delegates from local and international non-governmental organizations also took part in the event. Addressing the gathering, Minister Rauf Hakim stated that steps are being taken to improve sanitation in schools as well as in indigenous communities.
Indigenous communities are facing many challenges, and one such challenge is to improve their sanitation facilities. We have to model very environmentally friendly, but not too modern, but yet sufficient to ensure their health priorities and environmental concerns. My secretary personally went and had interactions with the indigenous community leaders. We presented it to the World Bank as our novel approach to sanitation for all, but community friendly. Similarly, I have been working with the Minister of Education and the Minister of Health in making specific budgetary interventions to make sure that our public school sector has a facility to see that safe sanitation is available, particularly to our girl children, and to make sure that their special needs are provided for, not forgetting the disabled.
Well, some very sad news to report to you tonight. A tusker named Kandula died this morning following an accident on Saturday while it was being transported from Habarana to Pinnavala. Environmentalists claim that the tusker's demise is a direct cause of the failure to ensure its safe transportation.
The elephant was brought from Habarana to the Pinnavala Elephant Orphanage on Saturday to undergo treatment for an illness. The vehicle transporting the tusker used its brakes suddenly during the journey near the town of Pilimathalava, causing the giant to fall and sustain an injury. Journalists who arrived at the site to report on the incident were assaulted by the group transporting the elephant in an attempt to prevent the propagation of information regarding the situation. Environmentalists yesterday said that the elephant was in pain and being kept on land near the Henavala hospital without being provided proper treatment or care.
A license has been issued for this elephant only to be used for cultural events, not to be ridden on safaris. Unfortunately, the owners use the elephant for safaris, which is illegal. It is in violation of the main condition of the license. There is a proper system for the transportation of elephants. They have not even followed that.
The tusker's post-mortem has been temporarily halted after wildlife officials brought the matter of tusker's ownership license to courts. Accordingly, the post-mortem will be conducted after the court's decision.
The proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution to hold provincial council polls on the same day was passed at the Western and Eastern Provincial Councils earlier today. The bill was passed in the Western Provincial Council subjected to amendments with 45 votes in favour, 28 votes against and 4 absentations. Meanwhile, the proposed bill was passed in the Eastern Provincial Council with 25 votes for and 8 votes against. Now with that, let's take a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
Former Minister of Justice and Buddhisasana Vijayadasa Rajapaksa issued a letter of demand to the Executive Director of the Campaign for Free and Fair Elections, Rajitha Kirti Tennakun, today. As per the letter, the former minister demanded a 500 million rupee compensation for alleging that he hid the report on the Walikada prison shooting during his tenure. The office of the Secretariat of the Asia-Oceania Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology of Sri Lanka was declared open by past president of the World Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Professor Sri Sabaratnam Arulkumaran, in Colombo yesterday. AOFOG is an international medical professional organization which comprises 26 member countries. The Dear Saintpura dairy farmers engaged in a protest in Medrigiriya Polonnaruwa today. They protested against 2 collection centres by discarding milk across the main road. Minister of Industry and Commerce Rishad Bathyudin yesterday appeared before the special commission appointed by the President to look into the reclaiming of land in the Wilpattu Reserve for resettlement. The minister presented information on the problems faced by people in Wilpattu.
You are watching Sri Lanka's trusted news brand, Other Derana 24/7.
Into international news now, Hurricane Irma, now downgraded to a tropical storm, continues its rampage up the west coast of the U.S. state of Florida, sustaining winds of up to 112 kilometers per hour. 4 storms-related deaths were reported in the area.
Hurricane Irma lashed the cities of Lakeland, Tampa and Fort Myers in Florida with heavy rain, severe flooding and storm surges. Irma's force was so strong that prior to striking Tampa, it pulled water away from the coast, bearing the sea floor. More than 3.4 million homes in Florida are without power and parts of the city of Miami are inundated.
Geez, this is pretty crazy right now, actually.
Meanwhile, as Irma moves inland, forecasters say more than 45 million people will face tropical storm conditions in the states of Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee and the Carolinas.
Well, today marks the 16th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attack in the U.S. A memorial ceremony was held in New York with the presence of relatives of victims and survivors of the attack as well as rescuers. A commemoration was also held at the White House where a moment of silence was observed by President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. With that, let's now take a look at some other stories making news across the world.
Myanmar rejected a 1-month unilateral ceasefire announced yesterday by a Rohingya militant group in the Rakhine state who urged Myanmar's army to lay down weapons as well. A government spokesperson, however, stated that Myanmar would not negotiate with terrorists. About 294,000 Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh since violence erupted in Rakhine last month. Former Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili and a crowd of supporters barged past border guards to enter Ukraine via the Polish border yesterday, following a standoff between Saakashvili and Ukrainian authorities. Saakashvili returned to Ukraine despite being stripped of citizenship by his one-time ally, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, and faces possible arrest and deportation.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Let's take you straight to the stock market now. Sri Lankan stocks were lower after the close today as losses in the land and property, services and beverages and tobacco sectors led shares lower. At the close in Colombo, the CAC all share fell 0.06%. Now for a wrap-up of the events on the trading floor, let's cross over to RM Sivanandan from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,889.75 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were Beruwala Resorts, Eden Hotel Lanka, Colombo Trust Finance, Tangerine Beach Hotels and Tessegro, while the top 5 losers were Blue Diamonds Non-Voting, SMB Leasing, Amaya Leisure, Abans Finance and Anilana Hotels. Today, there were 1 crossing and the crossing turnover was 35.64 million rupees.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
In sports, Rafael Nadal won his 3rd US Open and 16th Grand Slam title last night in a one-sided final against South Africa's Kevin Anderson. Having won the French Open in June, this is the first time since 2013 that the 31-year-old Spaniard has won 2 Grand Slams in the same calendar year.
World number 1 Rafael Nadal was never troubled by his opponent, who set the record for the tallest player to feature in a Grand Slam final at 6 foot 8 inches. While Anderson relied on his serve to progress all tournament, Nadal pressed hard and finally broke in the 7th game before adding another to take the first set 6-3. Nadal's dominance in his own serve told, and the Spaniard was clinical as he raced away to the match and the title, winning the 2nd set to 3 games and the 3rd to 4.
A bit of showbiz news now. 23-year-old Cara Mund won the annual Miss America pageant in New Jersey yesterday after impressing judges with her dancing and her response to a question about the US pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord.
The Miss America pageant, which started out with 51 contestants representing all 50 states and districts of Columbia, was gradually winnowed down to 5 finalists after a series of contests. The contestants also took part in a question and answer session where Miss North Dakota Cara Mund was questioned on the US withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord.
Which is it and why?
I do believe it's a bad decision. Once we reject that, we take ourselves out of the negotiation table, and that's something that we really need to keep in mind. There is evidence that climate change is existing, so whether you believe it or not, we need to be at that table, and I think it's just a bad decision on behalf of the United States.
Cara Mund was eventually crowned Miss America 2018.
North Dakota! Miss America, the stage is yours.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather Center. Now, starting off with your temperatures tonight, we can expect a variance between 20 and 26 degrees Celsius across the island over the next 24 hours. Now, if we take a look at the northern region of the island, we can expect some light showers, particularly in the Trincomalee, Jaffna and Anuradhapura areas. Now, moving downwards, the wet weather will persist in several locations, particularly in the western and southern provinces, with heavy rainfall of about 100 millimeters expected in the Galle, Matra, as well as Kandy, Polnarua and Kilinochchi districts. That's it from the Weather Center tonight, but let's now take a quick look at your city-by-city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight, right here on Other Derana 24/7. We certainly appreciate you spending your evening with us here on First at 9. I'm Mahesh Johnny, and as always, before we wrap things up for tonight, we like to take you to the Sita Amman Kovil in Nurelia, believed to be the site where Sita was held captive by King Ravana in the Hindu epic Ramayana. On a rock face adjacent to the Kovil, one can see a circular depression said to be the footprints of legendary Hindu god Lord Hanuman. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.